Hi Andrew, thanks for helping my project. Maybe it would be good to start off. Could you say just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Andrew Watson. I live in Florida in the United States. Um, and I've been here for about 6, 7 years. One of the best things about being here is I can see launches from my house. So I can see the rocket going up, trail and all. And I'm currently unemployed, but when I am employed, I'm a pipe fitter with the local 803 union. I've helped build a hospital in Orlando. I've helped build a test track in Auburndale. So it's really satisfying work. But the way I like to put it is it's Legos for adults.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, and you got to be so precise too.
oh yeah.
Well, talking about rockets going up, November 14th, I think like at what, 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, they're supposed to be launching Artemis 1. I guess, this is NASA's new effort to get humans back on the moon. I was
Mhm.
wondering, when did you become aware of that?
I'm aware of NASA trying to launch Artemis.
Yes, yes, going back to the
Um,
moon.
about 2 or 3 tries in. They are, I think, now on their eighth or ninth retry. So I'm not really gonna be going to watch it because of all the false starts they've been doing. I don't want to drive all the way out there and be disappointed again.
I know.
So
On one of those retries, I was giving a tour to some friends of Space Center Houston, and they were setting up the stage for this big follow event, and then it got canceled, and they just started taking everything down. Felt really sad.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, um, what do you think about us going back to the moon?
I think it's a good step in the right direction. I think we need to not fall in the same trap that NASA fell into and America fell into before of the moon and that's it. We need to go further. We need to go out and explore more, find more resources. Well, not even just resources, but find new discoveries, like things that could help life on Earth and also help us out there, like new elements that we've never discovered before, stuff that could potentially be sources of energy that would be alternatives to what we currently have. Lots of different things that we could discover out there. So I think NASA is on the right track, but ultimately, I think that NASA needs to kind of work with SpaceX on that. I think SpaceX needs to be the delivery system, the delivery mechanism, like UPS for space. And NASA needs to focus more on the science and experiments and satellites and everything else, like habitable systems, life support, all that kind of stuff. The more intricate details of it. SpaceX should be in charge of the rockets. That way, NASA will have their specialties dealt with in the right way, because at this point they're not able to do the rockets because of the government essentially cutting funding, saying you can't do this, you have to do this specific thing. SpaceX is a lot more free to make their rockets. So in terms of science though, NASA has pretty much free reign. Like they've been able to do a lot of really good advancements in science in terms of like biology, neurology, computer engineering, all of that. Almost every single bit of tech we have is from that. But in terms of rockets, they've dropped the ball because Congress has dropped the ball. So ultimately, I think they should let SpaceX do their thing while they do their own.
I think, a part of NASA definitely agrees with you. Um, SpaceX delivers supplies to the International Space Station and astronauts to the International Space Station. And even for getting humans back to the moon, the SLS Orion, well, the Orion capsule is actually going to meet up with the SpaceX rocket to take them down to the moon and back up to the orbit. So
Yeah, why not just let SpaceX take them the whole way? It'd
I
be
think
less.
it's I think it's part of that challenge of having spent so much money on something not to see something come out of it. It's like,
Yeah, but I mean,
but
they've spent
I
so
think
much money over the past few years, and nothing's really come of it. So at some point, they've got to call it quits and figure out what they really need to be doing. Because ultimately, if they become a private like customer of SpaceX and just say, "Hey, we'll build some stuff. Can you get it in the air?" SpaceX will be like, "No problem. I got you." That's all they have to do. They just have to work with SpaceX and they'll be good to go. But the competitiveness isn't going to help anyone because ultimately SpaceX is like the top space flight company anywhere. So if they want to get their stuff in space, that's the best route, in my opinion, at least.
I can't disagree. Um, well, where do you see humanity in 200 years?
Um, if everything goes well and we don't nuke ourselves, I'd say we'll probably be at least to the exoplanets because at the rate that we're accelerating in terms of technology and in terms of like biosystems and everything else for habitats on other planets, and how much we already know about our other planets just from observation and probes, I think we very likely could end up being on the exoplanets. I don't think we'll have interstellar travel yet because again, we would have to essentially have a wormhole drive, an FTL drive, whatever you want to call it, to fold space. But the amount of energy needed for that, at least with our current projections, is more than we could ever generate with our current energy systems. But if we could find something that would work, we'd be able to do that. But I don't think we'll be finding some type of infinite energy source anytime soon. So I think ultimately we will have colonies on Mars at least, and also have little outposts out on the exoplanets to be able to have satellites going around and have observatories and stuff to be able to get a little closer to what they're trying to observe and not have as much atmospheric interference like we have here. So it'd essentially be a better Hubble telescope because you can build a lot bigger because you're not trying to put it in orbit, you're putting it right on the planet. So,
Well, and I went to this conference, I think last year, where one of the scientists there was talking about using the sun like a lens. You know, if you put something out like 20 times the distance as the Earth is from the sun, then it like focuses the light, and you could actually see, um, you know, really much farther than you could with any telescope. I thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
yeah. Although you could also do a different way of it and somehow set up a lens in orbit around the sun and basically turn it into a death laser.
Oh no, or maybe a lighthouse
Yeah, that too. A
for
lighthouse that just
aliens.
completely scorches anything it looks at.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that might be one way to heat up Mars.
Yeah. Have a
Um,
little couple of lenses that can turn to just turn up the heat whenever you need and then turn again in orbit.
that's. I think you're touching on the weapon of the future.
Yeah. Talk about Death Star.
So, um, the the elementary kid with the lens frying ants is the future general.
That was me actually with leaves. I'd burn little
Uh,
messages into the leaves.
oh, that's way more creative than I was. I was just catching them on fire.
I couldn't quite get them on fire because I was in the northern hemisphere. I was in Illinois, so I didn't quite have enough sunlight to be able to light it on fire, but I could scorch it and turn it to ash.
Huh. Well, you got to make the most of what you have.
Exactly. Got to find some fun in the summertime. So,
Would you take a trip to space?
absolutely. In fact, I'm I know this is kind of a pipe dream, pun intended. But I was kind of hoping that once I turn out as a journeyman, because I'm in an apprenticeship right now, after I've got a few years on my belt and I've done a few specialized jobs, I'm hoping that I might be able to get in the running for going up to Mars to help with the installation of any habitats that they may have for like air gas, med gas, for domestic water, all that kind of stuff, and being able to pipe up there like on Mars. That would be awesome if I could do that.
That
So
would be awesome. How different do you think it would be actually doing pipe fitting on Mars?
a lot stuffier for one because you're going to be in a suit 100% of the time. So you may be working hard, but that sweat isn't going anywhere except right inside your own suit. You're going to be drenched. There's no ventilation either. So
Um, but aside from working on Mars, would you consider immigrating to Mars like for the rest of your life, or would you want to
it
come
would
back?
depend on what they actually have there, like the systems and the how well established they are, and if there are any job opportunities there. That's going to be the biggest one because here on Earth we still have plenty of job opportunities, but on Mars it's literally going to be a whole different planet. There's going to be a whole different set of jobs up there, and it's going to be more specialized because of the environment that you're going to be building in. So here on Earth, you can walk around no problem. Up on Mars, you're going to have tunnels and stuff like that. So anything outside of the habitats and any of the walkways will have to be like EVA essentially. So
Yeah,
that,
and constantly at risk of some type of decompression.
yeah, that too. It's not exactly safe for a family, and I do plan to have a family at some point. And
And
I'm pretty sure the person that I marry won't be too happy about moving to a hostile planet.
well, I was thinking about creating a dating site for future Mars colonists so that we can get that out of the way at the beginning.
For the people that are already there and have gotten used to it and have acclimated to the danger. It's like trying to convince someone to move from any other state except Florida to Florida when all they ever hear about is gators and Florida men.
Wow.
Like it's hard to convince them because like, oh, there's a bunch of crazy people and alligators and cottonmouths. I don't ever want to move there. That's like Australia. But when you come here and you actually live here, you're like, oh, actually, it's not that bad. There's barely any wildlife, and the wildlife there is just birds. So
That's true.
it's a difference between explaining it to someone and living it.
No, that's very
So
true. I went down to Mexico City and my parents freaked out because they're like, "Oh, this dangerous place," all this stuff, but you don't see any of it on the streets in a day-to-day thing.
yeah, as long as you're out in the daytime.
Oh, that may be true too. Um, but pretty much all the same headlines you can see in New York City as well.
Same. Yeah.
So imagine that you're a high schooler 200 years in the future, and you're doing a history project for whatever reason about the 2020s. So you're 200 years in the future, looking back on this decade. And what do you think people 200 years from now, or even more broadly, since we're not even halfway through it, what do you hope happens this decade that people will remember in 200 years?
um, I'm not gonna go for the whole Federation pipe dream thing because I know that's again a pipe dream, but I'm hoping that at least we will be able to those of us who want to go to space will be able to do so, and that we will be able to drown out the voices that basically say, "Oh, we shouldn't go to space. We just solve all our problems here. Don't even bother with space. There's no point. We shouldn't spread our human disease out into the universe." The most toxic like conversation pieces I've heard. I hope that we end up drowning out those voices and we still go to space despite the uh, the contention about it. That despite all odds, we still manage to make it to space and we manage to do it in a way that lets everyone participate, including the common man.
I like it. I love your pipe dream. I think it's literally a pipe dream and not like figuratively a pipe dream, and it should become a reality.
Yeah, I hope
On
so
that
too.
vein, have you considered applying to SpaceX? They have a lot of pipes that they need to have fitted here on Earth.
Yeah, but they need a certain amount of work experience that I don't have yet. I'm still only a third year apprentice, and I haven't even touched med gas yet. And med gas slash air gas stuff is basically what they're going to be working with. Stuff that's like gas pipe. I've mostly worked with domestic water, so that's not really going to be a big thing until they actually have a habitat that needs building. So I'm hoping that by the time I get to the point where I know med gas, like when I turn out as a journeyman, and at that point I'll have done enough domestic water that I could do both for them, and hopefully I'll have done like maybe a nuclear plant here and there, or some type of really high end like manufacturing job that requires really specific types of gas pipe. Get those under my belt, and then I'll have something more on my resume than just I can put pipe together. And then maybe I'll be able to get into SpaceX that way.
Well, it sounds good, but it sounds like you might be the toughest recruiter you have to get through. Um, you know, and sometimes we hold ourselves back artificially. So,
I mean, I looked at their pipe fitting like application process, and it says you need to have 5 years as a certified pipe fitter, basically meaning journeyman or independent. Which again, I don't have those 5 years yet, so I wouldn't be able to be recruited for that because I don't have year experience as a journeyman or a certified pipe fitter. So even on their own site, I would not be able to apply because I
that's
don't meet the
true.
minimum requirements. So
I would say though that's what they want. Uh, but it may be that they're, the job market's such they're not getting anybody that meets those qualifications, and you might be
yeah,
the next best option. So anyway,
I don't want to end up being second best. I want to be their first pick. So
it's I think that's admirable, and I look forward to the day of seeing you fit pipe on Mars.
I look forward to it too.
Well, Andrew, that's pretty much all I had. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or any questions or anything?
um, I think that ultimately, despite what people may say, it's a good thing for us as the human race to go out into space to be able to discover not how they put it of, oh, how insignificant we are, how small we are, but more of how much there is to discover out there and how much of an impact we can have on the universe at large. That despite us being a small blue dot, as Carl Sagan put it, we can still make our mark. We can still go out there and expand and explore and do all the things we've seen in the science fiction, but in reality. Be able to take the things that we've been dreaming about and make them physical reality in space.
I like it. I think it happened, and I think you'll be part of making it happen. So I look
I hope
forward to
so.
seeing it. Well, I really appreciate it again. I know it's kind of last moment. It was a wonderful discussion, and I thank you so much for participating in my project.
It's no problem. Thank you for having me.
Good night.
Good night.